This is Betting Weekly Premier League show. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, alongside me, Nigel Seeley and Jack Wright. Last weekend, only one minus money winner in the EPL, and that was Arsenal, who left it late away at Brentford. As we enter December, a lot of teams have got 8 fixtures scheduled. These are the dog days of the season for players, for teams, for clubs, and they can be a grind for bettors as well. Nigel, gamblers, players, teams world over have to put the hard yards in at this stage of a soccer season. It's not easy on the pitch. It's not easy for bettors off the pitch, is it really? Because the games come thick and fast and sometimes it can be difficult.
Good morning to you guys. Thank God it's the end of November. That's the only thing I can say. The only thing I can say to start this show. Yes, it's the where the business end of the season comes. I mean, it's a lot of where a lot of the shrewd players make a lot of money, and not aware that the teams with smaller squads struggle. In the Premier League this season, they've got a 2-week break now. It's a little bit helps them a little bit, doesn't it? Like obviously the World Cup, but I think more definitely so in the lower leagues in England. This is where the teams with the bigger squads usually come to the top, and the teams with smaller squads really struggle. But I mean, I think we've got to address the elephant in the room before we. I think you were very kind there, Dan, where you approach. You know, never mentioned the under 2.5 goal bets, and I went into it in rather detail with Steve Wish on the reaction show, which was I thought was quite honest, and I thought it was quite a very a good watch of a show there. I mean, it's just been an terrible season in terms of the unders bettors for me. I mean, it's been insane. There's various different reasons why we can look at it. I mean, really, probably poor handicapping for me is probably the number one reason, but there is huge reasons why, and obviously the extra time we've noted is there. Also, teams don't seem to be content for draws anymore. The draw is getting bigger and bigger each week. There's hardly any draws, and 0-0 draws and 1-1 draws are just things of the past now. You know, the 0-0 detector last year was worth a few quid. Now it's on the Antique Roadshow. Nobody wants one, and you can't get one for love nor money because they don't work. But I think the attitude of teams now in the Premier League is completely different from before, and we see so many VAR decisions now, which are just penalties that should never have been given, and penalties that are coming, which you would have got away with, and it seems to be getting more and more. So I think we are going to see a real regression, the changing in the odds now. I think the average Premier League game is probably going to be around about 2.75 now going forward. Whether that can sustain it, but last week was the most incredible game. And before, I want to bring this on, and we might overrun a little bit, but I think it's very important to address this. I think if you look at every single bet that I gave last week, or every single bet we've given over the last 2 or 3 weeks, after half hour or 45 minutes, we're about minus $5. We are big favourite. We are at half time, we're counting the money. It's going crazy in the second half. And if we mentioned it last week, and the amount of second half goals, if you look at the proportion between second half goals to first half goals now in the Premier League, it's higher than I can ever remember. It's around about 65%, 70% goals in the second half to the first half. Now that used to be around about 55-44%, something like that, on the home and the second leg. So there could be value in other markets. More goals in second half than first half, over 2.5 goals, or under 1.5 goals in the first half, or no goals in the first half. But we saw games just last week where, if you had said to me they cashed over, the first one was Sheffield United a couple of weeks ago, and then you saw games last week which were going crazily under 2.5. Nothing was happening in the last 20 minutes. Some debatable penalties, 10 minutes of injury time, and things are changing. And I think it's for me to really change the way that I approach things here. I've still gone with an under this week just to keep you on your toes, but I'm not going to change that much. But I just think there's the Premier League, the 2 times in the last 15 years where I've really suffered gambling really badly. One of them was during COVID, where I just couldn't get a read of anything because the home advantage had gone, and it took me ages to read it. But eventually I made profit on the season, and now with these total goal markets, and they're causing. Not many. They're causing sleepless nights, but I'm still getting some sleep. But so I thought I wanted to address that first, because I thought you were very kind in your intro. You never mentioned it at all. You mentioned about minus money favorites, but I think the talking point on the whole show, and the talking point on Twitter, and the abuse I've been getting over the last week is about the 2.5 goals. So I thought it was probably fair to address that first.
Well, look, you're very honest, and We put our ROI on the show, on the graphic. There's an awful lot of shows that don't. I was speaking to someone who does a different show at the start of the campaign, and he was suggesting to me, we're going to go ROI, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. 2 weeks in, it disappears from their screen. There's an honesty about us, and I hope that people appreciate that. And sometimes, as Nigel is suggesting, you've got to read between the lines. Jack, I mean, has that goal line moved? As Nigel was suggesting, is the sort of each or two market really going to be the Asian 2.75? Do you think now the over 2.75 is that the new line? Is that the new 2.5?
It has eked up. Yeah, it's obvious to see that with the stats that we've had. And I think another point for the reason behind that, we've touched on it previously as well, is that the gap between the top half of the Premier League, or certainly the top 8 or 9, and the bottom is so big. I think that's a point that Nigel made, where teams aren't going for draws anymore. When those lower ranked sides are playing against each other, a draw's not really any good to them anymore. A point isn't really going to do that, because they look down the line. They've got Man City, they've got Arsenal, they've got Tottenham, and they've got Villa. They think we're probably going to pick up a point in the next 5 weeks. We need to go for this one. That becomes a crucial game. So I think that opens things up massively. So yeah, the line's eked up. And we've got to adjust the sites. We're always adjusting our sites throughout the course of the season. But I think, yeah, absolutely, it's caught us a bit by surprise that the injury time, the added time, has stayed as big as it has. We probably assumed that it was going to revert back to a bit like normal after a few weeks, but it's not. It's still there. And like we've seen it last week, again, those goals. Look what perfect teams for under bettors was Wolves and Fulham last weekend, or Monday night, sorry. 3 penalties, goals, both teams scored in both halves, added on time goals again, 5-goal thriller. You wouldn't have believed that at the start of the season, but that's where we're at right now.
It's the penalties as well, though. That's the thing. Now.
Yeah,
used to get away with them. Used to get away with decisions, and they used to change the game. So the game would cut. There was a fortunate penalty. The other team would galvanise. They got away with it. Now you're not getting away with them. So it's changing massively. And you talk about 2 3/4. I know we're sort of going on about this quite a lot while in the picks, but I know 2 3/4 goals. I can name you 6 teams in the Premier League, 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League now, but their matches start 3.5 every time. Brighton, Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Villa. That's their 3.5 games, whoever they're playing. Now that's something we've never seen in the Premier League. Never. I mean, I can't remember. Man City at home against teams at the bottom, but you're looking at, you could have 5 games or 4 games in the Premier League each weekend that could be over and under 3.5, and it shows you how incredible change it is. When I first started betting, the total goal lines, when I first made the odds compiler, the total goal lines were like 2.3, 2.4 in a Premier League game. It's insane. And I think the thing is, for me, is, do I stick or twist? Do I keep persevering? Because I still believe that it will come back to the norm. I think it will come back over a period of time. And I do harp on about the weather, and I do say, but it's freezing in London today. So if anyone who travel into London, Jack, you're traveling today, it's frost, and the weekend's going to get colder. So is it the time? If we don't see that goal line coming down over the next month, then that's it for the season. I think.
Yeah, I think what might happen, and it's a big might really, is that there could be a reset with penalties. Because we saw it in the Champions League in midweek as well. And someone somewhere might just say, do you know what? This is ridiculous. And those, when I was growing up, it was ball to hand, and it was indirect free kick inside the penalty area. Now that doesn't exist anymore in the laws of the game. So they might have a reset with that, because the penalties, as Jack pointed out, is kicking it over those 2.5 lines an awful lot. We're seeing so many more penalties just on the late goals as well. Last season, 20% of the goals or thereabouts in the minutes from 76 to 90, which includes obviously added on time. This season already, it's up to over 25%. So if you're looking at cashing out, taking your profit, you could do. Sorry, Jack.
That's right. My eyes get drawn now to the very rare line that you see at 2.25, which there is one this week. And although you go, yeah, it's probably an unders, or it's probably a low scorer, you're kind of feeling like you're obliged to go in blind on that one, because you think, well, there will be goals. Just because there has been. you feel, well, is there a value? Because the fact that the line's so low, you're playing the line rather than the teams or anything else. But yeah, it's very interesting time, and one to get your head stuck into.
I think it's getting worse. I don't think it's just getting worse. I mean, last week was horrendous. But I mean, I think in the last 3 weeks, I had all the stats. I wrote them all out to do the show with Steve. And when I read them out, I felt so depressed, I put them through the shredder. But I think there's been 18 goals in the last 3 weeks that have been in 90 minutes or above. 18 in 3 weeks. I mean, and that's not including penalties that have been gone to VAR. I mean, that is just unheard of. I used to feel comfortable with an under bet at around about 70 minutes. Think, well, I'm all right. Yeah, I can take the dog for a walk now and be okay. But now, 85 minutes, you're squeaky bum time.
I think what it skews as well for those that like expected goals was at 0.76 a penalty. Now, if a penalty is given for a handball next to the byline, that's never 0.76 of a move. But it turns into a penalty because of a ridiculous handball, and suddenly the expected goal metric goes up. And if you're just looking at those without taking those penalty stats, and I know that a few statistical guys they always go non-penalty XG, and that might be a better metric to go with. But all these numbers, I think, make it difficult for bettors at the moment. Unless, of course, you're going blind overs every single week and then you're holidaying in the Bahamas for the winter. Don't worry about that. But it's strange because it's the Premier League and it's the Bundesliga has gone mad. You look at France, you speak to Steve Wirst and Jamie Easton, our two French experts, and they will tell you something different. It is unders this season, and Italy's about unders as well. So it's courses for courses. It's a very, very strange situation.
You have to move, Nigel.
The goal lines. Yeah, you have to go. Go and live in France.
I don't like to travel.
I heard that rumor. How many flights in 2023?
I don't know. I've flown them myself, mate, to be fair, but there you go.
Right, we better start with the selections. People have been fast forwarding over the first 10 minutes of the show, most likely. I hope not, because there are some nuggets in there, and it's always great to chat betting with Nigel and Jack. We need to chat tips, though, and we're going to start with Newcastle, Manchester United, and there's some good discussion around this game anyway. Newcastle are favourites at -107 here. Manchester United +290. I mean, when Newcastle played United at home last season, fairly late last season, I think it was, they were +135. I know they've invested, but they've got all sorts of injury issues at the moment. And Nigel, I mean, chaotic games for both of them in very different ways. And Newcastle, with that low block, got the draw with Paris Saint-Germain. Again, a dodgy penalty in the 98th, 99th minute, scuppered Newcastle backers there. And United, well, it was another, just when we thought that they got some control in fixtures with that really good win at Everton, it was complete chaos in Istanbul. I mean, as a bettor, do you just think, I'm going to leave this game, I know Jack's got a play in it, or do you think there's an opportunity here?
Well, when I was watching that Newcastle game with all the injuries, they were absolutely out on their feet in the 98th minute, that penalty, and that must have taken so much out of them. And I was just hitting the button, just thinking I've got to oppose Newcastle in some kind of way. And then I watched the Man United game, and I thought, how on earth, any other team in the world, I want to oppose it, but how can I trust Man United after what they've gone through? So it's a swerve for me, as I would not have a clue of how this match would go. I wouldn't really. It could be anything. It can't be 0-0, that's for sure, but it could be anything. But I mean, I'm intrigued to hear how Jack picked the bones out of this one, because I was looking to, those players were absolutely exhausted in 98 minutes, and that penalty, how are they going to lift themselves up? I don't know. And then Man United play that free game. So over to you, Mr. Wright, because I have got no idea how you're going to find the value here. But I'm all ears. I'm all ears anyway. But there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's a Newcastle win. -107 was a play. There's been a bit of money for him. That was a little bit better than that prior to this week's events. But yeah, Newcastle, so close yet so far with a massive win. And of course, that is a detrimental factor as far as that they are going to be recovering from that. And they were, as you said, dead on their feet coming the end of that game. But just look at this Man United side, and I do want to oppose them where I can. I think you look at where they've gone in the league, they've kind of crept up the table under chaotic scenes, but they've not really played anyone. And I think it's just putting a false impression on what they're about. Yeah, a good win against Everton is probably certainly an outlier, I would suggest, given what else we've seen. And last night's performance against Galatasaray made no difference to that, emphasised that, in fact. To take a 2-goal lead twice into that game and throw it away is criminal, really. I think it was described as schoolboy Eric Ten Hag said the management was poor. But I'll try and be brief on it because of the time scale. But Newcastle at home have been irresistible. 6 wins in 7. The wins there, they've scored 17 and they've conceded 2. The only game they've lost was that Liverpool game, which was a bit of another one of those freak games across the course of the season where they dominated it. Liverpool had a man sent off and still managed to find a way to win late in the game there. They'd kept 4 successive clean sheets until Sterling's free kick last week for Chelsea. One of those things that happen, but they've been very, very strong defensively. And as I said, they kept out PSG for 98 minutes until that controversial penalty midweek. I think the key elements, having Isak back, a focal point, a striker. He's got the best goals per 90-minute ratio in the entire league. So they've got 2 great strikers in Wilson and Isak. So to have one of them there, they've got the players to work around that, and having Guimaraes in the middle as well. They don't tend to win without him. So having him there is vital. You know, the young lads that have come in have done well, but I think they've got a 1-11, which is exceptionally strong. There's been no further injury reports from that PSG game, which is vital. But I think the 1-11 will beat Man United. And so United have had 1 day less rest. They went to Galatasaray, they went to Turkey, as opposed to going to Paris, and had a manic roller coaster game themselves. And they'll be devastated the fact that they were second in the group in the Champions League and are now back to bottom. So I think that kind of balances itself out relatively well. Onana, absolute horror show for him. There's one place you don't want to go, really. St. James's Park, 8 o'clock, with all the Geordies been able to get involved throughout the course of the day. They're going to give him some kind of stick. The pressure's going to be on him big style in that. And I wonder if he's going to be able to cope with that. There's a few players that they'll target for Man United as well. So, and for me, United are flat track bullies. You look who they've beaten so far this season: Burnley, Sheffield United, Fulham, and Everton. All sides pretty much in the bottom 5. Last season, it was exactly the same thing. They didn't beat any side in the top 9. In fact, they only picked up 1 point from their trips to the top 9. That was against Tottenham. And this season, they've been to Arsenal and Tottenham and lost both those games as well. So across the 2 seasons so far, they've combined 33-9 loss on aggregate across all those games. And I'm just going to go with a Newcastle side that I think we roared on by their support. We'll give them some extra legs. Won 2-0 in this last season. Already been to Old Trafford and won 3-0 in the League Cup. So I think at the price, I'm definitely playing it.
I thought you were going to be desperate to jump in there, Nigel, with something. I thought you had an Onana gag for us, but maybe not.
No. I was going to say all the people turning up at Newcastle, they're going to be like Jack turning up at the Christmas party, a bit Steve West. That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Talking of the Christmas party, he was the first one to go, wasn't he? Let the Premier League boys down, didn't he? Let them down.
Did, yeah. Didn't actually
and
make
in
the
last
train.
man standing was Mr. Roebuck. So
well, pretty much. I think it was actually Steve Wiss. He was wandering through down Oxford Street about 3:30 in the morning, I think. Anyway, Liverpool, Fulham for you to tackle for us, Nigel. This is 9 a.m. Eastern. On the Sunday, as Jack was pointing out, 8 o'clock local for the United game, 3 p.m. Eastern. This one, Sunday morning, Liverpool short price minus 420. Fulham, huge, plus 1050. So over 10-1. I mean, it's strange, isn't it? I watched the Champions League games, Nigel, in midweek, and there's such a sort of drop off between the pressure on the Champions League teams and the Europa League. I mean, Liverpool are sort of taking it in their stride, aren't they, at the moment? We're recording ahead of their latest Matchday 5 game in the Europa League, but it just doesn't seem to appear to be an issue for them at the moment.
No, they've got a big enough squad to cope with it, haven't they? I mean, Brighton are obviously struggling after European football. Now they've got a decent enough squad, but they're struggling. Liverpool can put out whichever side they want, really, and they'll progress through. And then if see their league position, and they'll take the tournament seriously. I mean, they're going to get in Champions League, aren't they? through the domestic, they're going to finish in the top 4. So, I mean, it's not really could be a concern for them. It'd be nice to silverware, but this match is a massive concern, a massive interest for them. I thought Liverpool were really good against Man City second half. I thought they dominated the match. Actually, they were a much better side. They contained Man City tonight, and we were chatting off air. I think Man City have got some problems this season. I think they're conceding a lot of goals, and I don't think they look anywhere near the team they have been over the last couple of years. So, and I've always said, I mean, I know Arsenal are peaking quite well at the moment, but I always think that Liverpool do not know. He still doesn't know his best side. He hasn't got the best out of Núñez. He's reliant on Salah so much. The midfield, he's got so much quality, but he's trying to fit them on. Diaz is an absolute worldie, but he doesn't play regularly. And I think once they really do know their best 11, I think they're a side that will come on really strong in the second half of the season. And I'm very happy with my bet on them to win the Premier League title of what I've seen so far. So that's on that one. On this match, and the match at hand, though, I'm going to go for the old favourite, the win to nil. BetRivers actually taken that market off the website, so you have to do a same-game parlay. I can't believe it. I'm not betting unders and I'm doing same-game parlays. What is going on with me?
You've changed,
The world
Nigel.
is changing.
You've
the world
changed.
is. I can't believe I'm saying this. So anyway, I'm doing a same-game parlay. You're not going to clip that same-game parlay. I'm going to go for Liverpool to win and Fulham under a half a goal, which is in old money. My term is Liverpool to win to nil. Liverpool have played 6 at home this season, won every single one of them. They've kept 1-0 in 4 of their 6 matches. They've only conceded 2 goals at home, which is the best record in the Premier League. Their last 3 home matches have been 3-0 against Brentford, 3-0 against Forest, 2-0 against Everton. And you would say that all those sides are pretty much in or around the level of Fulham. Fulham only won 1 on the road this season. I know recently they've had some overs matches, but I mean, Fulham, I think they're going to struggle to score against Liverpool. So we know all season they have problems with scoring goals, but they've sort of, like everyone in the Premier League, suddenly to score goals in matches that you don't expect them to score. If you look at the head-to-head in this record, it's really quite interesting, actually, because in the last 10 years, both teams to score has been a no in the last 10 years in this match. It's not a match that traditionally sees goals. 8 of the last 10 years have cashed under 2.5 goals, so as well. So Liverpool won 1-0 last year, 3 of the 4 years that Liverpool have won to nil. And I just think at plus money, plus 112, I think that's a really, really good bet. I haven't really been really strong because my confidence has been a bit bruised over the last few weeks with these goals going in the Premier League. But I really do like this bet quite a lot, actually. I think the price is so good, plus 112. I mean, if they're minus 450 to win the match, and given that they've only conceded 2 goals at home this season in the Premier League against the Fulham team without Mitrovic, and we know they're struggling on the road to score. I think at plus money, plus 112 is a sensational price. So Liverpool to win to nil on the same game parlay on the BetRivers website. You bet Liverpool to win and Fulham to score under half a goal. It pays them plus 112.
It is the biggest selection that we've got on the show this week in terms of price. Let's go to Bournemouth Villa, which is another 9 a.m. Sunday kickoff. A lot of these games not live in the UK, but because you're in the States, you'll be able to watch them. We are looking at Bournemouth here, Nigel, off the back of back-to-back wins. And they're now plus 400 to be relegated. We thought that they might get drawn into it. They still might do, but in fairness, they're making a better fist of staying up and showing the sort of form that 1 or 2 people thought they might do under Iraola. However, they're up against a Villa side that, as we know, are good off the back of European games themselves, and they are a shade under even money. Talk us through your play here.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to go for the money line on Villa to win the match. They were evens when I sent the thing through, so I think there might have been a little bit of money for them. So if you can get around even money, lovely if you can get the evens. But I think we might have got a little bit carried away about Bournemouth. I still think there's a club that are struggling. I still think the players they've got, the money they've spent, they're not good enough in the Premier League. And I think they're very fortunate. There's a lot of teams at the bottom who are a lot worse than them currently this year. Villa are the real deal. I think they're sensational. I think they're a brilliant side. I mean, everyone says, well, we have said on this show how great they are at home, and they are. Their home form this season has been absolutely phenomenal. But away from home, they're not bad as well. They've gone to Chelsea and won. They've gone to Tottenham and won. But in Bournemouth, I know they've won the last 2 matches, but they were at home to Newcastle, who were absolutely depleted after a Champions League game from injuries. And Newcastle weren't at the races that day. They were abused by their supporters coming off the pitch. It was Trippier was getting some stick. It was a really bad performance, but it was a really, a patched up Newcastle side that didn't have any players in hardly any positions, the key positions they want to play with. And then the other win they had was against Sheffield United, who were absolutely diabolical. So, okay, they've won 2 matches. Great, that's brilliant. But let's look at the composition they've played here. They haven't played anybody of great ilk. And Villa are just winning games. They've got goals all over the pitches for the side. They're entertaining to watch. They've got some real quality. Watkins is a real lively shout to finish in the top 3 for the top Premier League goal scorer. I think he's a real contender there. He wants to prove himself, obviously, with a European Championship coming up this year. I think he's going to be England's deputy for Harry Kane. And I just think it's a big. I think it's a big price. I think that Villa are being a little bit undervalued. If Tottenham had come to Bournemouth, I think they or any other team in that sort of top 4, top 5 of Arsenal went there, you would expect Arsenal to be around about, I don't know, minus $2, something like that. even money Villa? Is that a price that really is paying respect? I saw Brighton last season going off at places like this around about even money, plus 110. I think that's a real derogatory quote for Unai Emery and a bit disrespectful for what he's done at the club. So in or around even money, very simple, Villa on the money line.
Villa on the money line to win away at the Vitality, or the old Dean Court if you're my age. Jack, you go deeper into the stats for your play here. This is an interesting one because both teams have got to be positive effectively with your play.
Yeah, and that's what I expect to see here. I've gone for both sides to take 4 or more corners, so 4+ corners each at -115. I agree with everything Nigel said there as far as the two sides are concerned. I think there's been an overreaction as far as Bournemouth's recent results. And Villa are a joy to watch. They're very, very exciting, and they do play very high up the pitch, which does lead to plenty of opportunities. And I think it's a nice matchup because I think Villa will be high up the pitch with their wing backs, full backs, and that means Bournemouth can look to exploit behind. Bournemouth have 40% of their attacks down the left-hand side. That's the second highest in the league, which does lead to them winning plenty of corners. So I don't need to go into too much detail here other than a few stats to back up why I've gone for it. Bournemouth have had 4 or more corners in 5 of their 7 home games. They've hit 6 against all 3 of Newcastle, Arsenal and Spurs have visited the Vitality Stadium, Dean Court for us, and average exactly 6 corners per home game. They concede an average of 5.86. They've conceded 4 or more in 6 of their 7 home games, so that bodes well for the Villa side that, as you said, will go and attack this like crazy because that's what they do. And as far as Villa are concerned, 4 or more corners in 5 of their 7 away games. They've hit 10 at Forest, 10 at Wolves, and 11 at Chelsea. Shows you exactly how they go about their business. They love to shoot from distance. They love to get in round the back. They love to get crosses into the box. They've got Watkins up front, who's an incredible worker. Goals that Nigel's mentioned, but assists also. They average 6.86 corners per away game. They concede 4.71 on average, and they've conceded 4 or more in 5 of their 7. So all those stats add up. It kind of stood out a little bit of another way into this one for how you expect this game to pan out.
We're looking for corners for both Villa and Bournemouth over 3.5. The pair comes in at -115. Fair price according to those stats, as Jack's just explained. West Ham versus Crystal Palace, 9 a.m. Sunday again. And again, we've got a team off the back of European action. West Ham are favourites here, +102. Crystal Palace +280. The draw +250 on the money line. But we go to the goals. Palace, Nigel, as we talked about at the top of the show or referenced in part, have done us late when it comes to unders, but will 3 times be a charm for you here?
Well, they've done us the last 2 weeks. And it goes back to that thing I mentioned earlier. Do we stick or do we twist? Do we say, oh, we've had enough of them, or do we think we were getting the value? Now, I looked at these matches last week. I mean, how both these two sides last week lost on under 2.5 goals. It's incredible. So if we look at last week, West Ham were playing Burnley 0-0 at half time, nothing happening, no shots on target, absolutely dire encounter, a penalty in the 49th minute. Burnley score from a penalty. Gets to the 86th minute, we get an own goal, and then in the injury time, we get an injury time winner, 90 minutes +3 Souček. So anyone on the under,
how's your look?
Anyone on the under ticket's been done by a penalty, an own goal, and an injury time winner. The 3 things that could possibly go wrong for you all go wrong for you in one match. Then we head to Luton, where we played under 2.5 goals. It's 0-0 at half time. Nothing is happening. Absolutely picking up the money. You can't. There's no way this is happening. 0-0. This is 70th minute. Geezer scores. 72nd minute for Luton. 74th minute. Elise scores a worldie, and then an 83rd minute winner as well. So from the 70th minute to the 90th minute, we've conceded 3 goals. 2 matches where you just literally cannot believe that you've lost on under 2.5 goals. We've had the debate about under 2.5 goals earlier in the show. I'm not really going to go on any more about the strategy. I just think that this is a London derby. I think the two sides, West Ham after a European trip, they're in Serbia. Crystal Palace, we know that they're very negative in terms of Roy Hodgson, the way he sets his sort out. I know they've got some of their most attacking players back, Olise, Eze, and Eduardo as well. But I just think that they might cancel each other out here. And I'm hoping, these were the kind of games that I looked at last season and the season before and just highlighted as under 2.5 goals straight away and was cashing, not all the time, but cashing more often than not. And I think on a weekend where I am really quite nervous, I don't want to wave the white flag just yet. I don't want people to say, "Oh, Seeley's got it wrong." I'm gonna stick with it, and hopefully we've got this cold snap. It's going to be a lot of rain around on Sunday. They reckon it's going to be sleet and rain. It's going to be really cold Saturday. Temperature increases on Sunday in London, but a lot of rain and sleet. And I think that may sort of impact the style of the match we're going to see here. And I think with the Europa League visit to Serbia, the way the two teams played out, we can look at the record and say, yeah, the last 6 of these games the last 2 matches both cashed on overs. But when you actually break down the match and look at it, unders bettors were extremely, extremely unlucky in those 2 matches. So, and I bet both of them unders. So, it was a very painful experience last week. So I'll have a small stake on under 2.5 goals, and it's on the price as well. I think -110 is the price. I think if this match was played last season, you'd probably be about -150. I think -110 is a price that I'm happy to take.
I mean,
I don't think we had confirmation yet, but Ezer is likely to be out, I think, this weekend as well. He's got an injury, isn't he, that might leave him out, which would see this price go in our favour, I think, as well, when that's confirmed. I don't think it has been yet, but I think that's likely.
I was just looking at the half-time markets here. I mean, you could play, effectively 0-0 because under half a goal is +195. Goals by West Ham in the first half under 0.5 is -109, so close to even money. I mean, is that something that you could potentially get involved in rather than, because, you've just highlighted there was so little happening in the previous 2 games you talked about. They were both 0-0 at half-time. I mean, there's no wriggle room when we're looking at these markets because it's not under 1.5 because you get very short there, -250. You're literally hoping
you haven't
for
got
no
much,
goals
like you
in
say.
the
You haven't got.
45.
I'd rather play a -1 goal in the Asian handicap and get a push if there's 1 goal.
Yeah.
That would be how I would play the market. But I just think that unfortunately we can't tip people in play here. But I can only, and your record is saying what you got here. But I think the rule of what these unders bets are now is stick with the unders. But when you get to 70 minutes, trade out of it. Take your money, because you essentially got 30 minutes of football and things are going crazy. And these two teams last week at 70 minutes were involved in both. I mean, the Luton game, the Crystal Palace at 60 minutes must have been, I reckon, 12 on -1,200 to be an under 2.5 goal. Must have been, maybe even lower, maybe 15 -1,500. Had to be 70 minutes, 2 sides like this, Luton. No one would have thought there'd be 2 or 3 goals in the last 17 minutes, but there was. So, and that's the common factor throughout the Premier League on every team. It's all going crazy in those last 20 minutes. So, yeah, I would go for the under 2.5 -110, and then if you get to 75 minutes and you've got a great opportunity to hedge or cash. I never like to hedge. This is like the most unbelievable podcast. Hedging, same game parlays. What is going on? Will the real Nigel Seeley?
yeah. What's happened there? Where is Nigel? Who is this guy?
I don't know. Anyway, I used to be called Nick Seeley. I had a byline in the New York Post got me to write an article with for the World Cup, and I had a little column in it. I was under the name of Nick Seeley. So this is Nick Seeley doing this.
What was his record like? Better than yours?
Very good.
Yeah.
No one can afford him, though. Very expensive.
Maybe we should get him on for next week. Asian total first half under 1 for the push, if it is one at -110. Might not be the worst way to play it, but obviously, Nigel's giving you some good food for thought there if you're playing the unders this weekend. Big game of the weekend is, of course, Manchester City versus Spurs, 11:30 a.m. on Sunday. Now, not so long ago, people were saying, well, when Spurs run into Manchester City, this is going to be interesting. But Spurs have run into a load of teams that have smashed them recently, so it doesn't really matter, maybe. Spurs +800, Manchester City at home -335 here. City were -200 for the corresponding fixture last season. I mean, I thought everyone thought Spurs were going to be better, but it turns out that they're not. And all this about no European football, Jack would potentially say, well, they've had all this time to prepare for this game, but we know that they're massively injury hit. So how do we go about getting the value, Jack?
It's tricky, isn't it? This week we talked about it. There's injuries. There's the European fixtures to take into account. Obviously, you even mentioned the weather. We've got a 4 round of Premier League fixtures coming up this coming next midweek. So Man City are away at Villa. What a game that's going to be. Spurs at home, London derby. So how will that bear things into mind? It's a right minefield, to be fair. But on my ratings through my little tracker that I put through, I just had Spurs at a different price to this, and to get a plus 1.75 Asian handicap, I'm taking it. We know what City can do, but I think plus 175 Asian handicap minus 130 is the bet. Means half the stake is on 1.5 goal plus for Spurs, and half the stakes on 2 Asian. So for us to lose all this stake, they actually do need to lose by 3 goals. But I'm taking them to put up a bit of a fight in this one because of a few reasons. You have mentioned the fact that they've had the week off, for want of a better phrase, while City had an unexpectedly very tough evening against RB Leipzig. 2 goals down, got it back, had to go right to the death, had a goal disallowed Leipzig right towards the end, and then City went and stole it. So they certainly didn't coast that game, didn't take it easy. So there's plenty going on there. Obviously, had their winning streak ended last week by Liverpool, that massive winning streak at home. So it's kind of shown that it can be done. And as Nigel said, I think Liverpool were certainly their match, their equal, if not their better, in large parts of that fixture. And it's interesting to look at the sides that have taken points from City this season, other than Wolves, who sat back deep, low block, and hit them on the counter. You've seen Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool all take on Manchester City on the front foot, high press, put them under pressure, and be bold and positive on the ball. And that pretty much sums up how Tottenham play. So it could all go wrong. As you know, these sides have to take that chance, but it all could go very right. They've also got a very good record against Manchester City. They were 2-0 up at halftime in this last season. They did lose it 4-2 with one of those famous added on-time goals going against them. But prior to that, they'd won 3 of the last 4 games against Manchester City. So they've got that confidence within the squad that they can do it. We saw Darwin Núñez have a few good chances against City last week. In behind, some good running, some good movement. I think if Heung-min Son gets those opportunities, he's more than likely to take at least one, if not a couple of them. So I think there's got lots of positives for Spurs. Yes, was concerned about the injury list, thinking, are they going to be able to create the chances? Are they going to be able to put up a fight against City? Looking over the last 3 games, there were kind of excuses behind it. The first start of that, of course, was that Chelsea game where they reduced to 9 men, but still created chances and were undone with a couple of very late goals when they were pushing for it. We go to the game against Wolves. They were ahead for 87 minutes in that one, weren't they? And then there was 2 added on-time goals going against them there to lose by 1. And then against Villa, they lost 2-1 in that one, but had the better numbers as far as process are concerned. Yeah, we know the only thing that matters is the final score, but Son had 3 goals disallowed in that one as well. So that could have been a completely different story also. So I think that they're certainly creating and in some ways taking their chances. It's just been a bit of an unlucky 2 or 3 games for them. So I've got confidence in Spurs still. Ange Postecoglou's come out and said that he couldn't ask for more of his side. They're playing very well. They're just not getting the breaks at the moment. So I think they will still go there with confidence. And as for the first time in a while, they're going into a game as a big underdog. So it's kind of got that respect that they can actually go and cause a bit of a shock here. And you look at City's home record, they've not blown good sides away. They beat Bournemouth 6-1, Fulham 5-1, and Forest 2-0. But they played Brighton, Newcastle, and Liverpool at the Etihad this season. They beat Brighton 2-1. This bet would cash. They beat Newcastle 1-0. This bet would fully cash. And they drew 1-1 with Liverpool. This bet would fully cash. So, and Spurs' away record, other than that defeat to Wolves, which still would cash on this particular line, they've got an unbeaten record, and included going to Arsenal, with Arsenal flying and getting a draw there. So I think confidence is there. And with the line as it's set, I'm happy to take it.
Plus 175 Asian handicap, minus 130 is the price. I did some stats regarding both teams to score, but I've just looked at the price at minus 140. It seems very, very short. But I mean, City, you're making money if you're playing both teams to score this season, as you did last season.
I think that Spurs are going to score. So
yeah, they do. I mean, and that it comes to the big question, really. I mean, I was going to put the both teams to score, yes, sort of discussion up, but really. And we talked about this off air, Nigel. What we're looking at here is City, and Jack's just highlighted it. And I've talked about the both teams to score. Yes, Marky. What we're seeing here with City is they're not maybe as good as the outright market suggests potentially. Have they got control of games? should we be backing them at, what is it, -162 for the title? What's your thoughts on any bet on this game and just City at the moment in terms of the title?
I think the thing is with teams that win the Premier League title, I think they're a settled 11. You know, they make changes, a couple of changes in midfield. Man City have always made changes in that midfield. You never perm any 4 or 5 of about 9. You never know who's going to play midfield. But the defence has always been pretty settled. This defence, you never know who's going to play. They're changing every week. There's different players playing in different positions, and they're conceding the goals at an alarming rate. And I think up against better opposition, I think that's where they're going to struggle. We look at Liverpool, who are in transition. We don't know their midfield, but are at home. They've only conceded 2 goals this season because they're reliant on the same back 3 or back 4, whichever they decide to play. You know, there's always, you've got Van Dijk, you've got Robertson, you've got Trent if he plays in that result role. They're there every week when they're fit. Man City defensively are changing all the time. Going back to your point, this game, 47 goals in the last 10 matches in this fixture. It averages 4.7 goals per game. 9 of the 10 both teams have scored at the 10 matches in this fixture. All of them have been over 2.5 goals. 8 of the 10 have been over 3.5 goals, and 6 of the 10 have been over 4.5 goals. Given this crazy season that we are having and the amount of, that you've got to be a madman to bet under 2.5 goals. Anyway, you're going to be. But I would go for something really random, just a crazy thing. 4-3 Man City, 5-3 Man City, 3-3. We had Man City at a 4-4 the other week against Chelsea. This season, with these two sides, the way Tottenham play, the way that Postecoglou sets his team up, mate, then they go 3-0 down. They still kamikaze style. They put 10 up front. This could be anything. This could be a cricket score. Cue the first 0-0 of the season.
I've just tried to put 4-4 in the correct score market on Bet Rivers, and it doesn't allow me to put 4 for Spurs for some unknown reason. Wow. Spurs cannot. 4-3 City plus 5,500.
That's something like that. That's what you want.
Yeah,
a couple of dollars on some crazy.
You could Dutch a few, couldn't you? You could play a few. I mean, over 5-3, 6-3. And you mentioned before, I put the overs and unders lines on the running order, and it's 3.5, and it's plus 104 over, minus 129 under, and that's the 3.5 line. I mean, it is a ridiculous one, and I think we'll get it as well for those that like to play the sort of ladder overs, and they go 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, and so on, and you put your stakes accordingly. I would not put punters off. We need some best bets before we wrap up. We've run a bit long today. Nigel, what's your best play over this weekend?
Liverpool to win 2-0 against Fulham at plus 112. I think that's a fantastic price.
And Jack?
I'm actually going to go with Newcastle.
Newcastle to beat Manchester United on the money line. You're going, aren't you, with that one? Yeah, at minus 107. Yeah. Those are the best bets from the boys. Nigel, Jack, thanks for your company. Good luck to everyone over the course of this weekend. That is a wrap for week 14 of Betting Weekly Premier League show. We're going to be back on Monday. There is a midweek card of fixtures in the EPL. We get the best bets on the Tuesday and Wednesday games for you. And make sure you stay across all of the Betting Weekly content via @BecauseWeWin. From all of us for now, it is goodbye.